First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in tonight, whether you're watching on FCN Plus or on YouTube or Facebook. Hopefully, you've been enjoying your Thursday evening. For some of us, though, we do have some storms to be tracking. Welcome in. I'm Meteorologist Ross Mummah. We have been just kind of watching this upper level system kind of swirl around off to our north, now moving really north or northeast of Atlanta, kind of closer to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And on the very tail end of this system and trough, we do have a very weak boundary or just kind of wave of energy bringing some showers and even some thunderstorms. Now, earlier this afternoon, really between about 3 and 5 o'clock, we saw numerous severe thunderstorm warnings out across southeastern Alabama into southwestern Georgia. The overall severe weather risk and thunderstorm chance has really started to diminish quite a bit here now. These storms quickly losing their fuel. But you can kind of see how some of those fired off here earlier today, continuing to move off to the southeast and now entering the dominion or the domain of the First Coast. So Ware and Charlton County really seeing the only remaining storm here. So just south of the Waycross area, a little bit of some lightning left in that, but the overall size of the storm has begun to shrunk down significantly. And if we take a look at the storm core, which really kind of gives you an idea of the strength of the storm and the updraft itself, you can see they're weak to moderate at best. So quickly just kind of fizzling out to eventually some showers here within the next 10 or 15 minutes. Kind of headed towards the Folkestone area, Highway 1 and 301, about to see a little bit of some rain. So if you live on the south sides of Waycross or out toward the Folkestone area, you're probably going to be seeing at least a few showers here this evening. But for anyone who lives around Jacksonville, we do not expect any rain tonight. Potentially just some high clouds, which could impact the lunar eclipse that will peak after midnight tonight. So we'll kind of have a mix of clouds out there, but I do think there will be enough breaks in the clouds to see that total lunar eclipse here later on this evening. Now, we're got a big storm system on our way really by the Sunday afternoon and evening, likely for most of us, but millions of people across the United States are going to feel the impacts from this system over about the next 3 days. So this is kind of where the storm is at right now, close to the Four Corners region, kind of moving through Utah, headed into east or western Colorado, Wyoming. So that circled area is kind of the main wave of energy that we're currently watching, and that is going to swing into the southern and central plains throughout the day tomorrow, bringing very, very gusty winds. The isobaric pressure is really going to be squeezed down, so a very tight pressure gradient is going to be developing. What does that mean? Really just very, very high winds. So a multitude of fire weather watches and warnings and wind warnings and advisories there. So you can see red flag warnings from really the Rio Grande all the way up through Oklahoma, Kansas, and up to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Then you got high wind warnings in effect across much of Texas and Oklahoma, western Kansas and Nebraska, and then further to the east, places like St. Louis up to Chicago, fire weather watches, wind advisories in place. And some of these locations, especially across Texas and Oklahoma, are warned for 50 to 70 mile per hour winds. And that is non-severe thunderstorm winds. So this isn't from a storm or anything like that. The overall wind pattern, yes, is from the upper level storm, but they're not getting any thunderstorms in this specific location. This is really just the winds sweeping in behind what's going to be a very powerful cold front. So this is what one model was trying to depict. Wind gusts anywhere from 45 to 50 miles per hour, really from Lubbock, Texas, up to Amarillo, Oklahoma City, Wichita, even places like Springfield, Missouri, and Kansas City could see wind gusts closer to 40 to even 50 miles per hour. So a pretty rare event with regards to how strong some of these winds are going to be pumping out of the southwest throughout the day tomorrow and especially into tomorrow afternoon and evening. But it really just shows you the strength and the power behind this overall system. So that's how strong the winds are at the surface. If you think aloft, just go 500 to 1,000 feet above the surface, you could be seeing anywhere from 70 to 80, 90 knot winds, which, can often, if you bring that down to the surface, be closer to 80 to 100 mile per hour wind. So a very, very strong system. And unfortunately, when you combine those strong winds and that kind of wind pattern aloft with some heating, some warmer temperatures, and also a lot of low-level moisture, Gulf flow moisture feeding up really the Mississippi River Valley and into the Midwest, it creates pretty ripe conditions for severe weather and a potential severe weather outbreak. So from the Storm Prediction Center here, tomorrow's severe weather risk pretty much goes from, let's say, Oxford, Mississippi, up to Memphis, through St. Louis, and then into really the suburbs of Chicago, west of Milwaukee, Omaha, Nebraska, even included in that, Iowa City, Des Moines. So an enhanced to moderate risk. So that's a level 3 out of 5 or a level 4 out of 5, which is the moderate area. So you don't see too many moderate risks issued throughout the year. You might only get 5 or 6 days all year long that you have this level of a severe weather threat. So kind of just taking it a little bit more into detail here, the tornado risk is pretty substantial, a 10% coverage area there with the hatch lines, which is not what you want to see. So pretty much from St. Louis down through Paducah, Kentucky, Cape Girardeau, Memphis, Oxford, even Birmingham, Alabama, going to be very, very close to that line. So not only looking for some QLCS tornadoes, which those are typically just the tornadoes that are embedded within a squall line. They can often be very brief, but still it's a tornado, so it can be quite damaging, bring some pretty strong winds. I do think the straight line wind threat is really going to be the substantial risk, and you can see that here. 45% area pretty much from the north sides of Memphis up through Paducah and through the St. Louis area. So that's really going to be the main concern. They have the potential to see wind gusts from this squall line of thunderstorms anywhere from 70 to 85 miles per hour. So that is going to be a concern, as will the hail risk, a 30% area there over the St. Louis area for large and damaging hail, anywhere from quarter to golf ball sized hail potentially in that area. So Friday going to be potentially, very impactful day. And you can see just the swirl in this entire system. So meanwhile, areas west of there, out towards Rapid City, South Dakota, where Mount Rushmore is, those folks are going to be experiencing wind, yes, but potentially some snow, that cold air advection on the backside. But for anyone kind of downstream from this system, like Des Moines or St. Louis, you're going to get a very, very strong line of storms to move through tomorrow afternoon and evening. And why am I talking about this? Well, this same system is eventually going to reach the first coast by the end of the weekend. So we already have a severe weather risk. I'm going to break that down in much more detail here. But this could be a very impactful event across the entire country that will likely make national news, unfortunately, just because of some of the damage that is very, very possible and potentially likely here over the next 2 days. If you have any loved ones or friends and family who live across these areas, reach out to them, make sure, they know that there's some bad weather on the way and that, they have a safe place or a storm shelter or something like that to go to, because some of these storms are not going to be messing around. Whether, they live up in the Missouri area on Friday, where the worst of some of that severe weather is going to be, or on Saturday, which personally I believe this has a much better chance to see even more damage. And I don't feel good saying that, but very similar risk area, enhanced to moderate risk. So again, a moderate is a 4 out of 5 that goes from New Orleans up through Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, and Montgomery, Alabama, also included in that moderate risk. Nashville and Atlanta included in the enhanced risk. So this is a very large area that has the potential to see strong to severe thunderstorms. I think it is a very good possibility to even see a tornado outbreak in some of these locations. So I'm going to kind of break it down, some of the different things we look at as meteorologists to try to depict or decipher, what ingredients are on the table, where could some of the stronger storms be based off of some of the model data that we're picking up on. So this is the convective available potential energy. That's long-term form. We dub it as CAPE. That's really just to show you how unstable the air is. So how strong will some of those updrafts be? You have warming parcels of air rising aloft in the atmosphere in thunderstorm updrafts. So how much uplift will some of these storms have. So you can see the light blue and green, you have a decent amount of CAPE, some decent energy. That'll lead to some, heavy rain and storms. But really when you started to get into the yellows, those bright oranges, and even the reds then, that's when you're getting incredibly strong updrafts. So a lot of energy is rising very, very quickly. This is where storms can reach easily, 30 to 40,000 feet aloft in the atmosphere. And so you saw there Friday, primarily just a lot of, blues and greens. So that's why we're kind of expecting more of a wind threat for those folks up across Illinois and Missouri on Friday. Saturday, though, very warm, moist air at the surface getting pumped in across Louisiana, across Mississippi, and then even into Alabama. So very, very unstable air. You see the reds popping up pretty much from New Orleans up to Jackson. Extremely unstable air mass developing, which means that, there's just going to be a lot of energy available for these thunderstorms to tap into. Storms themselves, they love the heat, they love the moisture. That is the fuel for these storms to develop and to keep on going. So the more of it there is, the stronger the storms likely tend to be. Another thing to kind of look at is the helicity instability. That's a fancy term for pretty much just saying not only, the instability in the air, but also the rotation. So, those rising parcels of air, are they spinning some? Is there the chance for some rotation? So this can often show you when there's the potential for embedded, rotating thunderstorms or tornadoes embedded within a line of storms moving across. Or it can just show you, how much wind shear is available. If you get some isolated thunderstorms, could they begin rotating? Do they develop into supercells and eventually, drop down a tornado that could be on the ground for quite some period of time? So you kind of see here on Friday up across Illinois, Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas even. It's unstable. You're going to get some gusty storms, but as I said, I think as you transition kind of from Friday into Saturday, that's when the conditions really start to worsen. You're going to have a low-level jet, which is just a very strong, almost current of wind, let's say 500 feet up in the air. So it's a pretty, it's a low-level, high-speed wind that picks up typically overnight and typically comes up out of the south. So it's not only traveling quite quickly, but it's pulling in a lot of warmth and a lot of moisture up out of the Gulf. And you can see that kind of depicted here. So up right along the Mississippi River Valley, Mississippi, up to the Memphis area, and even the south sides of St. Louis, you're getting into those oranges, those pinks. So not only getting some very, very strong winds, but you're starting to get that chance for some isolated tornadoes. This is going to worsen then as you head into Saturday morning and then into Saturday afternoon. Those winds continue to pick up, and look at that there. Pretty much right along the Alabama and Mississippi border, you're getting the pinks, the purples, and unfortunately the reds. So there is a very, very good chance to see a significant severe weather outbreak, but also I think a tornado outbreak across Mississippi and Alabama on Saturday, late morning, and then continuing through the afternoon. Now, what does a tornado outbreak mean? There's not really a specific number to base it off of, but certainly over 10 to 20 tornadoes are very, very possible here on Saturday. So similarly, as I said earlier, if you have loved ones who live anywhere in not New Orleans necessarily, but that could be included in it, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, and then even eventually heading our way, reach out to them, make sure they know. I mean, it's if you follow weather at all, they're talking about it a lot in places like Birmingham and in Jackson, Mississippi, and things like that. But just reach out to any of your loved ones or friends who might happen to live in this area. There is going to be a strong, significant, potentially deadly line of storms headed that way. And this is just kind of one last way to look at it. And I'm zooming in specifically on Saturday morning here. So this is what we call the significant tornado parameter. So it really kind of takes in the CAPE, it takes in the helicity, it takes in the wind shear, it takes in heating and low level moisture and dew point values. So kind of takes a lot of different factors and rolls them all together that kind of creates the best scenario or atmosphere for not only tornadoes to develop, but strong tornadoes. So if you're kind of in that kind of palish white or gray color, brief tornadoes are possible. The yellowish and orange, EF0 to EF1, even EF2 are potentially possible. But it's really once you get into the orange color, the red, and then eventually the pink, EF2 and stronger tornadoes will be possible, some of which could be long track, which means they could easily be over, a half mile to, if not 3/4 of a mile wide, and they could be on the ground for 10, 15, 20 miles, really leaving a path of destruction and havoc across, the landscape and communities across there. So there is a very, very serious severe weather situation out there across Mississippi, Alabama, and I would even say southern Tennessee throughout the day on Saturday. Now, this system that is going to bring severe weather to these other locations across the country on Friday and then into Saturday, hitting the Atlanta metro area late Saturday evening. It will eventually head our way by Sunday. That's kind of where the First Coast now adds, their 2 cents into the conversation. So models are kind of trying to figure out what the exact timing of it is going to be. This exact one has it coming in a little bit slower. So by shortly before sunrise or dawn on Sunday morning, it kind of has it lined up from Columbia, South Carolina, down through Macon, and then down towards Panama City in the Panhandle. Other models have it a little bit further eastward at this point. Kind of moving through the Tallahassee area and a little bit closer to Valdosta. So this is really just one interpretation of the timing. So this is going to change, the exact timing. So don't lock this in just yet. We're going to have to fine tune the exact timing. We're going to put out a severe thunderstorm timing map here likely tomorrow, and we'll have all this information for you on our website, firstcoastnews.com. So head there tomorrow once we kind of fine tune the forecast, because we don't want to put it out too early and then be wrong, because we still have some more model data to kind of siphon through or shift through. But this gives you a good idea. By midday, I definitely believe that line of storms is starting to at least make its way towards our western counties, but I think more than likely it'll really be much closer to at least Highway 17, if not the I-95 corridor, by midday on Sunday. Typically in these situations, you get a squall line to develop. So a strong line of storms, they can often really start to ramp up in how quickly they progress eastward and forward. We often call this outflow dominant. So the whole upper level system and cold front can be pushing through, but the squall line kind of takes on a mind of its own, continues to move further and further eastward here, throughout the duration of the event. So although the cold front might be backed up closer to Montgomery, the squall line can really just surge ahead and surge forward. So models are much better at trying to depict that, but they still, aren't perfect and struggle from time to time. So I think there's a very good possibility that once this line develops and starts moving eastward, it could arrive much sooner than what some of the models are trying to depict. So as I said, we're going to fine tune this a little bit, more here as we head closer and closer to the weekend. But nonetheless, a slight risk of severe weather, so a level 2 out of 5, will be in effect all up and down the eastern seaboard. So from the Poconos in Pennsylvania, through Trenton, New Jersey, down through Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore, Richmond, Raleigh, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, all the way down to Brunswick and Jacksonville, we are all going to be included in this slight risk of severe weather. So what are our greatest, threats or risks going to be? Certainly damaging wind gusts. At the surface on Sunday, before the front arrives, winds will be out of the south and southwest anywhere from about 20 to 30 miles per hour. So winds at the surface already going to be fairly strong. Winds about 500 to 1,000 feet aloft, going to be pushing closer to 40 to 50 miles per hour. So we are going to have a fairly strong low-level jet above us here on the First Coast. I've mentioned that term earlier. So any, rain or storms that develop, you have to picture, if you have a 50 mile per hour wind, let's say 500 feet aloft, and you get a downdraft to go through that. So, heavy rain pulls those strong winds down to the surface, continuing to accelerate them. And when they hit the surface, they got to spread outwards. So in those scenarios, if you got a 50 mile per hour wind aloft and that gets brought down to the surface by 500 feet, well, that could easily come out as a 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gust, which could certainly do some damage to any property that you do have. So 50 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, certainly a possibility. Large hail, I think, has a much better chance of developing this Sunday than it did last Sunday. If you tracked any of those storms last week, they were primarily warned for about penny to potentially nickel-sized hail. Pretty small. Hail is hail, but I came from Oklahoma, so where we were used to golf ball, baseball, softball-sized hail even. So my thoughts on hail might be a little bit skewed. But I do think we could at least see quarter-sized hail, which could do some damage to your property, to your car if you have it outside in some of these thunderstorms on Sunday. So hail will be a concern. And then, of course, the tornado risk. I do think these will be more squall line tornadoes, so those QLCS tornadoes embedded within the line of storms. On, I guess it was Monday. Yeah, Monday morning when we had some tornadoes down towards Orlando or the Sanford area. Those were supercell thunderstorms. I do expect this to be a little bit of a different situation. This is going to be just a very strong squall line moving in. So because of that, any tornadoes that would happen to develop, I would expect them to be a little bit weaker and to be fairly brief. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, if the tornado hits your house or your neighborhood, it's still, whether it's an EF1 or EF0, is still certainly going to impact you and do some damage. So no tornado is necessarily weak, but weaker than what the folks across Alabama and Mississippi will likely experience on Saturday. So we'll watch for the tornado risk, but I'm really much more focused in on the straight line wind threat. So because of that, if we do happen to get any severe thunderstorm warnings throughout the day on Sunday, please pay attention to those. Take caution. Have just a storm safety plan in place. Some of these, straight line winds can do just as much damage as an EF0 tornado can do sometimes. So if you get a warning, head inside, find some shelter, find or go to your safe place. And of course, a lot of these are going to bring a lot of lightning as well. We got lots of folks, thousands of people planning on going to the Players Championship down at TPC Sawgrass on Sunday throughout the entire day. As of right now, I do expect the rain and storms to hold off for that event until at least early to middle afternoon. So I don't think TPC will be impacted until after 2 o'clock. So most of the final round of the tournament, will, I think they'll get it underway at least, but there's still going to be a lot of people out there, and lightning is going to be a major concern for anyone who is outside. So just keep that in mind as well. So a lot going on this weekend. This will continue to be updated over the next several days, but nonetheless, the most accurate weather team here at First Coast News has issued a weather impact alert on Sunday. Right now, we're saying Sunday afternoon and continuing into the evening hours. That will also be adjusted and become much more focused in on an exact timeline here as we get closer to the event. But just know, expect some widespread heavy rainfall, strong winds, and potentially some hail as well. So some strong to severe storms do appear very, very likely there throughout Sunday afternoon and evening. Kind of just back to the beginning then. This is the latest on the radar headed into really Folkston right now. So we are still keeping a little bit of some lightning. Looks like Nassau County is getting just a little bit. Pretty small storms. So just know if you live in Nassau or northern Charlton County, even western Camden, you could be seeing at least some heavy rain, if not just a few rumbles of thunder here within about the next 10 to 15 minutes. But if you've been watching this whole stream from the start to now, these storms have continued to shrink. So I do think by the time they hit I-95, there'll pretty much just be some light rain left for folks out there. So besides that, should be a quiet evening after, I'd say, 9 p.m. for nearly all of us. We'll keep some of the clouds around, but As I said at the start, I think the clouds will begin to filter on out for the total lunar eclipse here overnight tonight. So as I always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I don't see too many questions on here on Facebook, but whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube or FCN Plus, we always appreciate you guys not only tuning in, but just your support, asking questions, whether, they're weather related about the specific event or just have something on your mind that you want to ask. Always appreciate it. Always here for you guys. So unless anyone's got any questions, I'm probably going to wrap things up here in just a second. So I'll give you all one more chance to ask away, but I don't see anything. So showers tapering off here tonight. Beautiful weather tomorrow, windy and warm on Saturday, and then we prepare ourselves for rain and potentially some strong to severe storms on Sunday. So I am meteorologist Ross Mummah. We'll have much more for you on the upcoming severe weather event on air and online here on FCN Plus, YouTube, and Facebook. But for now,